The Prime Minister makes his position clear on ramp inspections at the airport. Strong reaction from domestic violence activists to last Saturday's murder. And in sports, the West Indies are struggling against India at Sabina Park.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
A very good evening to you. I'm Pearson Bowen. This is the CBC Evening News. No aircraft using the Grantley Adams International Airport will be exempt from ramp inspection. Prime Minister Freundel Stewart made the government's position clear on the issue after Jamaica recently complained about a Kingston-bound flight that was delayed for inspection. Speaking as the House of Assembly debated an amendment to the Civil Aviation Act, Mr. Stewart explained such ramp inspections are routine.
These are procedures that have to be followed, and ultimately Barbados has to make sure that it complies with the obligations to which it is signed on under our under international conventions and in accordance with the laws that govern civil aviation here in Barbados and the conventions that govern civil aviation regionally.
Prime Minister Stewart says he expects the fullest cooperation with aircraft inspectors carrying out their duties.
If they have to detain aircraft because they are not satisfied that the safety requirements are being complied with, they will have the fullest support of the government of Barbados. We cannot play snakes and ladders or Ludo with the fortunes of the people of this region in terms of their safety when on aircraft.
Barbados has moved to amend its Civil Aviation Act to enhance safety in the airline and civil aviation industry. This legislation gives wide-ranging powers to the Director of Civil Aviation, allowing the official to detain aircraft and crew deemed unsafe to fly. It also protects people who inform on terrorists from prosecution. Peter Thorne reports.
International Transport Minister George Hudson says the amendment will help Barbados significantly in its quest to have the Grantley Adams International Airport designated as a Category 1 facility by the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration and the International Civil Aviation Organization. Mr. Hudson says the amendment follows an audit of Barbados' regulatory system in the aviation industry by the FAA and the ICAO in 2009 and 2010. He made a comment as he piloted the amendment to the Civil Aviation Act, which also gives legal status to CASAS, the Caribbean Air Safety and Oversight System, which was launched in February 2009 by the CARICOM Secretariat.
They have recommended that the Civil Aviation Act be amended to enable compliance with the ICAO safety oversight requirement, especially the empowerment of the Director of Civil Aviation and Aviation Inspectors to detain aircraft and to prohibit the holders of aviation documents from exercising the privileges of those documents in the interest of safety. And these deficiencies, as I said, has to be addressed if we are going towards trying to establish, as far as the U.S. FAA is concerned, if we are going to establish Barbados as a Category 1 destination.
Mr. Hudson says the amendment to the Act will also allow Barbados' aviation authorities to impound aircraft and detain its personnel if they are deemed unsafe for flying. He says that under the 2004 legislation, this couldn't happen because the Director of Civil Aviation could only report the incidents or breaches.
So if we found, Mr. Speaker, for example, that the pilot was intoxicated or in a position that in the view of the inspector or the Director of Civil Aviation that he's not in a position to actually fly the aircraft safely, we could not, under the 2004 legislation, he could not be grounded, Mr. Speaker. This provision now gives the Director of Civil Aviation and the inspectors that power that in the event that they the aircraft personnel or the aircraft itself is thought, in the view of the inspector, not to be safe for flying, that the director can actually ground that aircraft.
Minister Hudson says that in a changing world, the Caribbean has to fall in line with trends in the industry or be left behind. Peter Thorne, CBC News.
Transport Minister John Boyce says Barbados is on the right track in dealing with the challenges of aircraft safety. He says such challenges are always present as people and goods are being transported. He says Barbados and the Caribbean have a fine record in civil aviation and will do all to maintain it.
Barbados continues to be in step with the developments of the region. It tells us too, sir, that we continue to be prepared to be leaders in this arrangement and acknowledge our responsibility in terms of taking CARICOM and our colleagues island states around and our partner island states around, taking us to the correct position in this whole global exercise.
Mr. Boyce also highlighted concerns by passengers about constant delays due to increased security checks, but he says that with a tourism-dependent economy and terrorist threats, such security checks are needed.
We've made a very good safety record over the
Well, the changes to the Civil Aviation Act have received the full support of the opposition. Deputy Leader Dale Marshall told the House of Assembly that measures to this effect were started under the last government.
We've enjoyed a very good safety record over the years, and the opposition will support any efforts, sir, to continue that particular record. Matters such as the safety of our citizens is not something that can be divided into BLP or DLP. Those things transcend party political perspectives.
An opposition parliamentarian believes that Caribbean citizens have been left out in the promotion of the integration movement. Representative for St. James North, Raul Eastman, has told the House of Assembly that this is affecting unity in the region.
If we could get some carriers, some aircraft at good fees to permit persons to travel through the region, then we can have things like teacher exchanges occur more often than they occur now. We can have persons from St. Vincent come here for a week. We can have Barbadians get down to the Bahamas and see somewhere else, sir. So integration, in my subjective and respectful view, has to involve the people as a whole.
Well, the clock on Parliament building, which hasn't been working for some time, is to be repaired. This information from Speaker Michael Carrington. Speaking at the start of today's sitting of the lower house, he expressed the hope that the clock should be functioning again in another 6 weeks.
We have been looking at it. We've had the best expert advice available, and based on that, a decision has been taken to have it repaired, and we expect that those repairs will be effected over the next couple of weeks or so. There will also be some dislocation in terms of parking, since we have to cordon off the area, and we ask members for the cooperation in that regard. It is very likely that the clock should be working certainly by the end of July this year.
Well, government is looking at a comprehensive assessment of its current building stock with a view to introducing an adequate disaster risk management plan for Barbados. This disclosure from Attorney General and Minister of Home Affairs Adriel Brathwaite. He says the plan should minimize expenses over time and help to safeguard against the adverse impact which natural disasters will have on the island. Ron Brathwaite reports.
Speaking at the official launch of the Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Management, Attorney General Brathwaite lamented the fact that many of government's building stock were antiquated and in need of repair or retrofitting. He stressed that the fact that the 2011 hurricane season had already started was even more worrisome. Mr. Brathwaite, who is also the Home Affairs Minister, said through this project they hope to get a clear idea of the total number of public buildings in need of repair.
And we do believe, look at the buildings that we have, ensure that they're self-insured where possible, or ensure that, that we do have them insured. We recognize that there will be a significant cost to it.
Officials say it would be more economical for government to construct new plants, as opposed to continue to repair old buildings. This was agreed by Mr. Brathwaite, who however stressed that the present financial climate did not allow access to a lot of funds.
Over the last 3 years, as you know, we have all been severely challenged in terms of the present economic recession. So that when I go to my Minister of Finance and I say to him, well, in fact, we actually need a further $500,000 so that we can, I'm just giving an example, so that we can have engineers look at the schools and other establishments that we want to use in the event that there's a hurricane or other natural disaster. And he says to me, $500,000, where am I going to find that from? Because in fact, I need to take that from somewhere else.
He noted that any money spent on disaster risk management reduction was money saved by taxpayers in the long run.
It is not only just a question of our ability to respond to hurricanes, it's our ability to respond to hazards of various kinds.
It is now 21 days into the 2011 hurricane season, and Mr. Brathwaite says government is ever conscious of recent cyclones in the U.S. and a tsunami in Japan. He says government will therefore not be complacent in its treatment of its preparations for this year's hurricane season. Ron Brathwaite, CBC News.
Activists against domestic violence are reacting to an incident last Saturday in which a Jamaican woman was murdered and an announcement from police today that the lone suspect has died. Shane Seeley has the story.
It was here at Gemswick, St. Philip, where Natoya Ewers received multiple chops that led to her death. And today, police announced that Anthony Michael Searles, 44 years, also of Gemswick, St. Philip, who was wanted in connection with the killing, is now dead. Police reports suggest that he told them he drank a poisonous substance. Ronald Hunt, a resident of the area, showed me the site in front of his home where Natoya was killed. He was inside his house when his daughter told him Anthony was beating Natoya. At first sight, Mr. Hunt thought Natoya was being beaten with a plank.
It wasn't a plank, it was like a Collins, you know, and then he start chopping. So it was like too bloody to me, so I went back inside. So actually when I went back inside, I went where you could see, which is my bedroom here. I went at my bedroom there, you know. So after when he started chopping, I couldn't take it no more, you know. So I just went and I turned off the stove. And actually when I get back outside, she was already, that was it.
Now, domestic violence activists have voiced serious concern about this most recent act, which led to the death of 2 people. Liesl Daisley of the Save Foundation has renewed a call for domestic violence to be made a crime against the state. Ms. Daisley says this would make it easier to assess the level of domestic violence in Barbados. From 2000 to 2007, domestic violence accounted for 21% of homicides in Barbados. Ms. Daisley says there's no reason to believe that figure has declined.
From just keeping track of what's been going on the ground, I would say it's probably approximately around the same percentage, but we don't have, an exact amount after 2007.
There's also been reaction from the Bureau of Gender Affairs. Director Patricia Hackett-Codrington has described the incident as very disturbing.
Part of the difficulty, I think, though, lies in the fact that people are unable, don't know how to resolve conflict. And in the power struggle and with the inability to resolve conflict, the only thing you think you can do is take out the other person.
The Director of Gender Affairs also says another issue is women who provoke violent responses from men, and that's a topic that will come up for discussion in the coming months. I'm Shane Seeley for CBC News.
Prime Minister Frundle Stewart wants Barbadians to return to what he calls the essential values. He sees these as caring for others, respect for each other, courtesy, honesty, integrity, a sense of responsibility, compassion and tolerance. The Prime Minister was delivering the feature address at an awards ceremony sponsored by the Anglican Diocese on the 7th anniversary of the Anglican newspaper. According to Mr. Stewart, these essential values have eroded over the years. He's calling on Barbadians to be their brother's keeper.
The true meaning of the parable of the Good Samaritan is that society will disintegrate if we ignore the needs of others and selfishly pursue our own interests. The real danger is that when we reach our moment of crisis, the help we desperately need may not be forthcoming. It is therefore a measure of our social responsibility when we take into consideration the needs of our brothers and sisters.
Reigning Calypso monarch Anthony Gabby Carter believes there should be no reduction in government support for the National Cultural Foundation. He was speaking on the first festival stage program for 2011 on QFM. Gabby said the NCF's budget determines how effectively it is managed. He also said the organization's lack of funding meant there will be competition for sponsorship.
Not one point, whoever it is, and then the scrambling amongst the same sponsors that really tempt people trying to get money from NCF. Got to compete with us now. Foolishness. Give NCF carte blanche, like in terms of, you say this, get 100 million, get a 5. How much? 10 would be 10%. 5 is 5%. Get a 5% to run the thing so that you can have a. And what NCF have that budget? There's nobody can tell me that NCF won't do bigger and greater things with that money.
Well, still to come, we'll tell you what a regional disaster agency is requiring of meteorologists. Right now, the Courts Quiz. By 1986, the BL&P had supplied the 75,000th customer. Who was that customer? The Courts Quiz. By 1986, the BL&P had supplied its 75,000th customer. Who was that customer? It was a police constable residing in Crab Hill, St. Lucie. There is a call for greater training of meteorological personnel in the region. This suggestion from Deputy Executive Director of SEDIMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, Elizabeth Riley. She says it is important that the region maintains its developmental path, and part of this is ensuring that it is able to detect weather systems early.
It is critical that we do not reverse the gains that we have made in the areas of early warning, preparedness, and response. These remain core functions within our mandate, and in this regard, the recent discontinuation of traditional resources for the training of meteorological personnel in the region, notwithstanding the legitimacy of the reasoning, is worrisome and requires urgent collective action from our regional governments and development partners.
Ms. Riley has, however, praised Caribbean heads for their commitment over the years towards risk management.
The experience of St. Lucia with Hurricane Thomas of 2010 is instructive. This event resulted in US $336 million in damage, an impact which represented 43.4% of GDP. Some may even suggest that thresholds for loss seem to be lower and are likely linked to the rapid growth of asset exposure. Country risk profiling is therefore a necessity, and the SEDIMA system is making efforts to rectify this gap.
The National Workers' Union in St. Lucia is requesting another meeting with LIAT this week, but the union wants that meeting on its own turf. The meeting will hopefully settle matters regarding compensation for 34 LIAT workers who are being retrenched. According to the union, the workers should be paid 3 months' salary in lieu of notice, but the airline is insisting that 1 month's pay is adequate. LIAT is also accusing regional trade unions of introducing new conditions some 18 months after the airline announced its intention to close city offices around the region.
Good evening, I'm Mark Seal with your Lime Sports World. Another West Indies batting failure has swung the first Digicel test in the favor of India. Starting day 2 at Sabina Park in Jamaica on 34 for 1, the Windies were dismissed for 173, with Adrian Barath being the only success with 64. So far, the Windies have 165 to win, as India are 91 for 3 in their second innings.
Given out leg before, so they've struck right away. Sawan goes leg before to the first delivery, offering no shot to Ishant Sharma. He's gone over the top. Good bold hit. 1 bounce forward to reach 50. There he goes again. An even bigger one. Edged and taken. He's gone this time. Praveen has come on from the end where he's most comfortable to claim his first test wicket. Has he edged it? Yes, he has. Another one for Praveen. He's walked immediately, hasn't waited for the decision. Caught at third slip, looking to play on the onside. Praveen Kumar gets another one. And down he goes and hoists it away, the last ball before lunch.
He's gone. Got a nick on that. Brought him forward. Did Harbhajan. And merely Vijay did the rest.
Bowled him. Ishant Sharma hits the stumps. Who needs a slip? Who needs a short mid-wicket when you can bowl direct?
Off the bat, he's gone. Harbhajan gets him. Bunks. Little inside edge. Popped up to short leg. And he's got boundary. Still for a catch behind, and that's the breakthrough. Amit Mishra gets his first wicket of the match. There he goes again, and that's the end of the innings. Too ambitious, and India have a very healthy lead. Kept low, and he's got him once again. Ravi Rampal has struck early with a bit of help from the track. Caught behind. It's about time for the West Indies to get a breakthrough. It's taken some time, and Abhinav Mukund hasn't taken full toll of his opportunities. And he's taken him, caught and bowled. Once again, Lakshman fails, and Sami has got the smile back on his face.
Play resumes at 11 o'clock in the morning, and we have it on CBC TV 8 and Radio 94.7 FM. Meanwhile, President of the West Indies Players Association, Dinanath Ramnarine, says he'll be taking legal action against the Chief Executive Officer of the West Indies Cricket Board, Dr. Ernest Hilaire. This stems from reports coming out of the recent meeting between those two, where it has been reported that the WICB CEO accused Ramnarine of trying to siphon money due to players to another account. Ramnarine brought the news last night on TV8's Thornhill Talk Sports.
I have referred the matter to our trainees at law, and that matter now would be in their hands. And we have even given a recent release in which the WIPA board has sent out a release actually expressing their complete confidence in me, and who will continue to have the full authority to represent WIPA in all matters.
The WICB had reported over the weekend that whilst it will continue to recognize WIPA as the player's rep, it won't be sitting with Ramnarine until there's an improvement in his behavior at these meetings. WIPA is highlighting that the WICB is making this move at a time when there are so many upcoming arbitration matters, and also when there's the very important negotiation for a revised collective bargaining agreement and memorandum of understanding. Still in cricket, Combermere notched their second win on the trot in the Lyme Under-15 tournament with an innings and 20-run victory over Dighton Griffith at Waterford today. They were bowled to victory by Ian Boyce, who took 5 for 33, Sachin Clark 3 for 35, and Keon Harding 2 for 4. CBC's Andy Thornhill reports.
Needing a further 103 to make Combermere bat again. Early troubles for Dighton. Stefan Proverbs bowled by Boyce didn't trouble the scores. In the meantime, Kieran Bolden, he was certainly the man to get out. He had shots all around the wicket. This tickled down to fine leg for 4. That's Alder trying to give him some support. Giving a long handle. Gets a boundary. But then, leaving his defense wide open, was bowled by Clark for 11. So more problems mounting for Dighton Griffith. Another one bites the dust. Raw Caesar leg before Boyce for one. Can't believe his luck. Well, Combermere didn't mind, did they? Rico Trotman, one ball, back to the pavilion, did not trouble the scores. Clark to Clark. And Sachin claims the victim. Andre goes without scoring. The end was virtually near. Some last-minute resistance, perhaps? No way. He's gone. Keon Seeley. Boyce on a roll. He would eventually take a fiver. But this lad, Bolden, would remain firm as the rock of Gibraltar. But alas, there was no real support for his effort. Andy Thornhill, CBC Sports.
Thanks, Andy. And scores in that game: Combermere 213, Dighton 183. Also moving to a perfect 2-0 are Alexandra, who defeated St. George Secondary by 5 wickets. Scores at constant: St. George 23 for 5 and 86, Alexandra 23 for 8 and 87 for 5. There was also a second round victory for St. James over the Lodge. Scores at Trent: St. James 142 for 7 and 191 for 6 declared. The Lodge 166 and 53. Jahir McAllister took 8 for 27. At St. Stephen's Hill, KFC Ellerslie defeated Princess Margaret by 86 runs. Ellerslie 129 and 138 for 4 declared. Princess Margaret 39 and 142. We'll take a break here, and when we come back, we'll be talking hockey. The Barbados Hockey Federation cannot sustain paying its electricity bill, and this is the main reason why the 2011 season has been reduced to 1 round of matches. President of the BHF, George Bennett, told CBC Sports today that the financial situation is so bad that they may have to request to have the AstroTurf facility placed under the care of government.
Our light bill has been so astronomical and is really not sustainable. So we've had to look at that and also reduce the number of games we play under the light. I think our best option, at this stage really is to ask the National Sports Council to really assist us or to take over the running of the facilities, similar to what is done at the National Stadium and the Netball Stadium, because as a non-profit organization, it has really become too much of a burden to continue to look for $4,000 or $5,000 per month to pay utilities and also to maintain the turf and the facility in general.
In golf, for the 5th consecutive time, top local player James Johnson has won the United Insurance Barbados Open Championship. In relatively heavy conditions at Royal Westmoreland during the final session, which was caused by overnight and intermittent showers, Johnson cruised to another victory as he shot a final day 72. That gave him a gross 211 over 54 holes of competition and his 10th victory in the Barbados Open. Johnson finished 10 strokes ahead of the second place Carlson Leacock, also of Barbados, who shot a final day 72 as well. Leacock grossed 221 over the 3 days, while Trinidadian Ansari Muhajiri was third with 225. Kamisha Anthony of Antigua, who like Johnson led from the opening day, took the women's title for the 3rd time in 4 years, as she posted 78 and finished with a 54-hole gross of 228. Defending women's champion and Barbados' top junior, Serena Smith, was second as she shot a 75 on the final day for a cumulative gross of 234. In the senior men's competition, veteran Ricky Skeet, who shot a 73, took the title with a gross of 229. Michael Haynes also finished with 229, but Skeet won on the countback system. Roger Beale maintained his early grip on the super seniors, posting an 80 for a cumulative gross of 230. More than 100 regional and international players took part in the 28th edition of the Barbados Open Championships.
Good evening, I'm Kent Jerson and this is the Business Report. Now, the Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union Limited is reporting a relatively successful year, but the delinquency level on its loan portfolio remains a concern. Lisa Broom reports.
The union's annual report notes some very positive indicators in the critical sectors of its operation. In a message to shareholders, the board of directors says there was marginal growth of 2% in total assets. That figure moved from $80 million to $81.8 million over the last year. Total deposits increased by 1%, and the net surplus ended the year at $86 million, up by 102% over last year. The credit union said a 4% growth in investments was responsible for much of its positive performance. In the annual report, the credit union indicated a 28% increase in the number of loans issued. It also saw a 3% boost in membership over the previous year, noting that 927 people joined. Delinquent loans, a major concern for the credit union in the previous year, fell by 11%, from just under $964,000 to $872,000. The credit union says this reduction was due to its counseling of members in how to manage their finances. Topping the delinquency list was personal loans, followed by loans in a hurry, then unsecured and travel loans. Lisa Broom for the Business Report.
After recording positive growth in the first 4 international investment products it has offered, Royal Fidelity is putting another one on the market. The company has launched the new Tigers A3 product that will allow Barbadians to invest in the global agriculture and energy sectors. Managing Director Charles Chambers explained that the global trends forecast long-term growth in these 2 areas.
We think that there's a fair amount of volatility involved in buying food companies directly, though. So what we've done is we've decided to invest in a food index that is exposed, as opposed to just directly to you know, like soybeans or to corn or to actual commodities, is exposed to the companies that produce the food. So companies that produce the seeds, the fertilizers, the chemicals, the transportation, ethanol and biodiesel.
According to Mr. Chambers, the minimum injection for the offering is $5,000. Investors are guaranteed 100% principal protection along with a 10% return over 5 years.
So we think about Barbados within the context of the minimum savings rate, and we think, well, you know, the average investor would have the opportunity to invest in the bank getting 2.5%. So this says that you'll get 2%. It's a little bit less than the minimum savings rate, but guarantees you a return over the course of your investment. And that's if the prices go down. If the prices go up, what we'll do is we'll give 65% of the upside. So you'll get 110% of your money plus 65% of the upside that's created.
And now we take a brief look at the stocks. Here's a summary of today's trading on some of the region's exchanges.
Very good evening to all, and again today we had a few positive attributes associated with the weather. It was fair to partly cloudy, it was sunny, it was breezy. The only real blemish though, we had a little haze about that restricted horizontal visibility a bit. The maximum temperature, let's take a look. We got up to 31.9 degrees Celsius at the airport today. The minimum temperature was 26.7. At 6 o'clock, skies were fair and hazy, still rather warm, 29.8 degrees Celsius, the humidity 76%, and the winds strong out of the east at 36 kilometers per hour. Just a few showers over, predominantly over the northern portion of the island chain, very close to the coast. Now, in the eastern Atlantic, there's one tropical wave we are tracking. That wave is in the vicinity of 49 degrees west to the south of 15 degrees north, and the intertropical convergence zone is very active. It trails all the way from the African coast right across the eastern Atlantic. Now that wave is due in the region sometime late tomorrow. Now today, for the most part, the ridge of high pressure dominated most of the island chain, and as a result we had just some shallow patches moving in and out of the island chain. Down south, the intertropical convergence zone generated showers and a few isolated thunderstorms over the Guyanas and over Trinidad. Our implications for tomorrow: the intertropical convergence zone will continue to be quite active, but the tropical wave late tomorrow into Thursday, that is going to be adding more fuel to the fire, and as a result we're going to be looking at cloudy skies, scattered showers, and even the chance of isolated thunderstorms even though the model data is suggesting that we're going to be sitting on the northern boundary of this activity, some of it is going to be deflected northward, and we will be looking at a couple of showers and even a few isolated thunderstorms. In the western portion of the region, some remnant activity associated with a frontal system and a tropical wave, and this generated cloudy skies and scattered showers over Hispaniola, still quite unsettled, and those conditions could very well extend into tomorrow. I'll be back after the break. And welcome back. And the northern portion of the region should continue to be bathed in sunshine. Well, down south, the further south you go, the more unsettled it's going to be. The very active intertropical convergence zone, the multi-layered cloud mass associated with that, will be generating showers and a few thunderstorms over the Guyanas, Trinidad. But as I indicated, when that wave moves in late tomorrow, that is going to be moving rather rapidly because there's some strong winds following this tropical wave. So we're going to get a quick spike in moisture levels, some showers, possible isolated thunderstorms. That is going to be out of the area. Then we're going to be looking at fair and breezy conditions returning to the region. Let's take a look at our 4-day prediction. And we're going to be looking at Wednesday through to Saturday. Some showers tomorrow later in the day as the instability draws closer. Scattered showers, instability extended through to Thursday. But once we get to Friday, it's going to be fair and breezy, fair and partly cloudy. Come Saturday, the weekend is looking pretty good. But of course, we're going to be keeping you fully informed on the movement of all those systems in and around the region. Sunrise tomorrow, 5:33. Sunset will be at 27 minutes after 6. The first high tide 12 minutes after 8 rather in the AM. The second is going to be at 4 minutes after 9 in the PM. The first low tide 9 minutes after 2 early tomorrow morning. The second is going to be at 14 minutes after 2 in the afternoon. The seas still up a notch. 2.5 meters, moderate in open water, and we are urging small craft operators and sea bathers to continue to be cautious. The winds east-northeasterly to easterly, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Barbados tonight, mostly fair, hazy and windy. Tomorrow, partly cloudy to cloudy, hazy and windy with some showers, mainly during the afternoon.